Hello and welcome to my Metroid May tier list. I was promising this since the start of Metroid May. This is the tier list I was going to make after I played all of these Metroid games in the month of May, went into June. But we're going to rank 8 games today from the Metroid series that I've now played, and a lot of these are new to me, so we're gonna get into it here. So let's start here. We're going to start with Super Metroid, the very first game in this timeline that I played. It is super impressive for what they was able to do on the Super Nintendo. Incredibly sprawling map, the interconnectedness of it, the huge boss encounters that you get. It's amazing, like what they were able to accomplish. It's not the most intuitive game. You've got your Metroid moments of like, oh, I've got to run across that thing. Oh, I haven't used the dash move yet. There were some things like accessing most of Meridia. I didn't get that initially. I was stumbling around for a while. That and the controls are kind of cumbersome, as in like selecting the weapon instead of having dedicated buttons for any of those things. Not that you have many buttons to work with, but still, it was a little bit annoying to have to work around those controls. But it's a beautiful maze of upgrades and branching paths and mini bosses and different environments and the wrecked ship. You know, there's all kinds of stuff to find. It's so amazing when you do find something new. It's like, oh my god, this was here the whole time. I just didn't know it and couldn't get to it. I found it somewhat difficult. It can be an issue mostly due to those issues I was listing before, but things like the grapple beam like allows you for more movement options. Also presents some problems in some areas because like it gets a little weird to move and like the physics of it are kind of weird. Anyway, I really enjoyed Super Metroid. A lot of fun. I would say that is a solid S tier game. Easy, classic. Let's move on to Metroid Fusion. Metroid Fusion I enjoyed quite a bit. The setting was really cool. The environments are really cool. You got the X and the SAX. Didn't see the SAX as much as I would have thought in the game. You know, it pops up maybe 3 times until the end. It's super heavy-handed though, in terms of its guidance and its directives, and there's no way to skip any of that dialogue. It's just like, you gotta listen to someone talk at you for a good minute and a half until you can pick back up and you already know where you're going. Very kind of tedious. Thought the controls felt really good. I didn't play these on the GBA originally, and granted I played it with a different controller this time, but also it just kind of limited obviously with the buttons. You know, the aiming being on the L and R triggers, it's a little weird. I wasn't super used to that. Never really got used to it. I just kind of used the D-pad, but yeah, the SAX is a spooky character. It's really interesting. I liked the setting and all that. There were some stumbling points and like, I mean, it is so directed, so you really don't get lost. Especially some of the bosses. I got tripped up on some of those bosses for a while, just because of the mechanics of it weren't clear, and I just kind of couldn't make any progress. But I mean, I feel like it was a fun game. The movement's great, and yeah, really enjoyed it. I don't know if I would put it super high on my list. I would probably say it's a good B tier. We might come back to this and reorganize at the end once they're all on the board. We'll see. But right now I'm going to put it down in B. I think that's fair. We got a lot of good games here. You see the list goes from C to triple S, so we're gonna have some pretty good games here. But next up, let's see here, Metroid Zero Mission. This one was super interesting to me because I had never played the original Metroid in many of these games. I don't know if I want to go back to the original Metroid on NES. This is a retelling of that game, and I love this game. This game was great. I think it did a good job of guiding you, but not too much. Like, it just like, go up there. And it's like, you got to figure out how to get there. It is the original entry and original adventure, so you're just getting used to the world and discovering things about the world. It's really cool. I did really enjoy it once you got the power grip. That was really nice. That was kind of a standard issue in Fusion. You know, once you get the power grip, you can kind of climb around and it's a lot easier to move around. But also the game is broken up into little more manageable chunks. You don't need to like go back all the way across the map like you might need to in Super Metroid. You might need to go from Norfair all the way to Crateria, and like in Zero Mission you don't really do that. So That was nice. But then the kicker is the final sequence of the game. Once you get to the very end, you know, you access what seems to be the final area. You get to the Zero Suit section, which is after all that, is so cool. It's a stealth game then. You have to climb around the Zero Suit Samus and stun guys and sneak around. I did not expect that at all. That was an amazing addition to this game that I did not expect. And then you get to go through that area, the Chozo area, I guess, with all the space pirates, again, with your power suit and escape. And I really enjoyed that whole section. It was so cool. And I would say easily Zero Mission's one of the best Metroid games that I've played of all of these. Absolutely. I would put that up in the top tier, triple S. All right, next up is Metroid Prime. We're into the 3D games now. I thought back on it, I hadn't played it in a long time, and I did play it with the GameCube controls, and we'll get to how I played the next games later, but the GameCube controls, they worked fine. I didn't have many issues with them. The main issues I have with Metroid Prime are that it can be tedious and repetitive. There's often no good way to get where you need to go. Like, if you need to get to Frendrana Drifts, you have to go through Magmore Caverns. There's no way around it. You're often trekking this whole stretch of Magmore all the time for really no reason. And then Phazon Mines, there's a couple ways to get there, but it's hidden away and tucked away. That's one thing that kind of breaks up the pacing of this game. That and the victory lap, which is when you get to the end and you have to go and get all the artifacts to open the impact crater. You probably don't have all of those at the time that you get to the end, so then you have to go back and visit every area again, including Magmore, including Fendrana. So you're going back and forth all the time looking for these rooms, and they give you clues, but you can only get some clues after you get certain artifacts. So then you're going around and getting certain artifacts to take them back to the impact crater to get another clue to go back out and do another run. It can be so tedious if you don't know what you're doing. The game will give you all the information you need. It's just, it can be a slog. But I think it was a lot of fun. Like, the combat's a lot of fun. The traversal itself is fun. I liked it. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed all the mechanics, the weapon switching. Like, the final boss requires you to do the weapon switching, and like some of the visor switching works really well. Loved it. That's great. And the Ridley fight, that was a lot of fun. I mean, not as fun as some of the other games we'll talk about, but it was good. I enjoyed it. For it being the first 3D Metroid game, they just nailed the vibe, the feel of it. They really put a lot of time and effort into how those environments feel and look, and it's too bad it really kind of gets bogged down by some of that traversal. I would say it's easily A tier. An easy A tier for Metroid Prime. Super fun game. Moving on to Metroid Prime 2. Now, this is a game I started playing with GameCube controls until I realized there was a better way. And that way is Prime Hack. You can play Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 on your computer with mouse and keyboard controls. It's so nice. Metroid Prime 2 was such a treat to play with Prime Hack. And I think Metroid Prime 2 might be the best Metroid Prime game of the three. I think Metroid Prime 2 is really laid out well. You got a hub world. You have 3 different areas that are tied to that hub world. You have NPCs for the first time, and you're talking to them, and they direct you clearly and succinctly to where you're going. The backtracking is, made less tedious by having all the areas connect to each other. Like, every single area is tied to every other single area. So there's always a way to get to where you need to go. And then by the end, you have fast travel, which does help with that last victory lap. You have to find stuff in the light world and the dark world, which is the main mechanic of this game. The dark world, there's Dark Samus. Dark Samus is so cool. Dark Samus is amazing. I like the fight with Dark Samus at the end. That was great. The dark world is pretty punishing at first, but eventually you get a suit that you can withstand the dark world better. One other thing I really wanted to highlight is that most of the boss encounters in Metroid Prime 2 are thematic. When you're getting the boost ball, the boss is a ball and it's bouncing around. It's using its mechanic. The grapple beam, when you get the grapple beam, the boss is also using a grapple beam. I just appreciated the thematic cohesiveness of those elements. We'll get to Metroid Prime, again, we'll get to Metroid Prime 3 in a second, but the puzzle mechanics around the light and the dark world, like, were really cool. I really appreciated that. Not that they were super complicated puzzles, but you had to find a way. It was usually about finding the way to get to where you needed to go, finding the right portal, finding the right way to get through the light world or the dark world to get to a spot that you couldn't access in one of the other. I really enjoyed that. It does tend to stretch out the game. It's a long game. Even with Prime Hack, it did take a while. Like, it took maybe 12 to 15 hours, but I think it was well worth it. I think it's the best, most well-designed Prime game. I think Prime 3 is also worth playing. I really enjoyed Metroid Prime 2. I would say Metroid Prime 2 is easily, I would say I'd rather play that than Super Metroid again. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, I would go play again, for sure. A lot of fun. So Metroid Prime 3, wow, what a game. So many NPCs just right off the bat. You are inundated with dialogue, NPCs, people that want to talk to you, people to talk to. You're on a ship, you're on a Galactic Federation team. So different than any other Metroid game that I've ever seen. It's like Halo, but there's Samus right there next to him. Like, Samus is the Master Chief of this game. It is definitely more action and big budget kind of focused than like exploration. You do have to backtrack, and it's so painfully obvious. It is so clear, like, where you need to go. You take what you saw in the previous area, you use something you got in the current area, you go back, you get a new thing that helps you progress in the current area. There's not a lot of, like, interconnected, you're going back and forth. You finally use your ship in a meaningful way in this game, which is really cool. Your ship has missiles, your ship has a grapple hook. It finally gets used. Your ship is finally not just a docking spot and like a save point. It's actually out there doing stuff for you. You take it, you get in your ship at different spots on the map. You can call your ship in, get in your ship, go to a different spot. It's not as useful or like interesting as you might think, because like the game doesn't require you to go back and forth a lot between like different areas. There's always someone talking at you, telling you where to go. You are a hired gun by the Galactic Federation to do their duty and do whatever they tell you. The victory lap in this game is actually getting energy cells to power a ship. They're hidden away sometimes, so you do need, I think, 4 or 5 of them to finish the game. And I didn't hunt around for most of them, but I had enough to finish the game. I think, you know, some of them might give you energy tanks, some of them might give you more lore or something, but it's not really required. As it is in Metroid Prime 1 and 2, it's not required in Metroid Prime 3, which I appreciate. If there was a lot more backtracking in this game, it would be alleviated by the travel system with the ship. Man, are there some epic Ridley fights in this game. It's so awesome. You're flying through this giant tunnel. Your HUD is telling you how many meters it is until you hit the bottom of it. I think it's really cool that this Metroid series has a game like this. And it's so out of place. I mean, I haven't played other M, just over the top with action. In comparison to Metroid Prime 2, yeah, most of the bosses in this game are just big enemies where they require you to use like the motion controls or the pointer controls to effectively defeat the boss. Hit certain spots and then you gotta rip something off and you use the nunchuck, you know, you motion control it off. I'll also say about the final area is that it's kind of a joke. But at the end of the game just is like, oh, everything's overloaded with Phazon. Your suit's overloaded with Phazon. You don't have energy tanks anymore. You just have this bar. It's like your damage meter. It'll keep going up. It's like your exposure. And you take damage and it goes up more. Like, why did I collect all those E-tanks? Also, the enemies in that game, I don't think I ever died. In this recent playthrough that I did, I don't think I died a single time. I don't think I was like good at the game. I know that the game constantly gave me energy tanks, like just for free. Like just walking through a new area, oh, there's an energy tank, oh, there's another one. And the enemies in this game do not do a lot of damage. The reason they do give you all those energy tanks is because it wants you to use the Phazon enhancement device. Basically overloads you with Phazon, gives you way more firepower than you would normally need. Though it is pretty required in later fights because the enemies seem to have just tons of health. So I think Metroid Prime 3 is a good game. I would play it again. Better than Metroid Prime 1 or not? I don't know. I would say I would actually put it above. I think there's more going on in that game than you would think, and it's a lot of fun. It's not your typical Metroid game. not by a long shot, but it's a lot of fun. I would say it's a solid A tier game. Both worth playing, both very different. Metroid Prime 1 is pretty isolating. Metroid Prime 3, you always have someone nearby, and it is super weird, but it's a good time. Okay, next up is Metroid Samus Returns. This is a remake of Metroid 2 Return of Samus on Game Boy. This was made for the 3DS family of consoles. This is the first entry in this series from Mercury Steam. I think this game is a lot of fun. It's got great movement and fluid combat. The traversal and movement in this game is so nice. It's like you got the 360-degree aiming. You've got the counter mechanic, which is a little bit cheap. You know, it's like you can use it on anything. You have to learn the timing on it, but you can use it on pretty much everything. I really enjoyed, just like we'll get to in Dread, the environmental design, fleshing out the environments, and especially in 3D. It was really cool to see all that detail in 3D. There are a few really fun bosses in this game. There's a few that I even still can think of. I played this game last year, and we'll get to the ending in a second, but like the final fights in that game are epic. They're awesome, because this whole game you're fighting Metroids, and that's kind of where this game gets tedious. Is like you're fighting the same bosses over and over. There's a couple variants of those Metroid bosses, but they're just kind of the same. The only difference really is typically the arena you're in. Sometimes it has lava, sometimes it has multiple levels, or like, you know, it's just the stage you're on varies. But the boss is usually exactly the same, or I think there's 40 total in the game. There's 40 of those kind of mini bosses in the whole game. That's your entire objective in the game, is to defeat all these Metroids. Now at the end of the game, there is one little Metroid that thinks it's supposed to be with you, and you take it along with you, and that's how the story progresses. But also it's cute, but also it's just not that interesting of a game. I mean, it's spooky for sure. It was fun. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't know if I'd play it again anytime soon. I'd probably put it above Fusion. That brings us to our last game, Metroid Dread. Man, this game is good. I love this game. I've been speedrunning it. I've been sequence breaking it. You know, it's just a lot of fun to poke around. It's pretty directed. Like, the game does always push you toward the critical path. There's a lot of scripted things that happen. Well, I should say the game often locks you in an area where there's only one way forward. It's usually pretty obvious where to go. And if it's not, then it gets a little more interesting. You do some puzzle solving, you do some problem solving, or usually the game is like, no, you should go this way. And obviously the Emmys are the big thing in this game, and I've come to find them annoying just because they're one-hit kills and you can counter them. The developers knew that you could do certain things and get certain things before you were supposed to. You know, in the Kraid fight, if you have bombs, there's a different whole little scripted cutscene that happens because there's a bomb launcher that sends you right into Kraid's stomach and you can just blow him up. They planned for that stuff, and that's really cool. Coming from Samus Returns, it feels just as good, if not better. Like, it feels like the movement, the mechanics, the combat, all the abilities you have, I love it. It's just such a fun game to play. That's why I wanted to speedrun it. It's just, I wanted to keep playing it. It was just so fun to play. I should mention the very last fight in the game, the final boss. Wow, it's just such a dance. You see the counters coming, you see a certain attack pattern, you gotta slide, you flash shift, you counter, you space jump, you amazing boss fight. Like, what a dance. I'm happy to put this in the triple S tier. I just want to revisit this list now and see if I agree with what I did, because I love Zero Mission. I think that's a really great game. Maybe I put this too high, because I mean, it's a great game and it's also really short. Like, it's super short. It's like maybe 4 or 5 hours. And the more I think about it, the more I want to put Prime 2 up here, maybe Zero Mission down here. I really enjoy the Metroid Prime games a lot. There's so much of it to explore, to see. Dread, same thing. It's a really big map, and the detail is so incredible. Zero Mission, there's a fair amount to see and explore and do. Incredible that they pulled this off on the Game Boy Advance, and they added that new stealth section. Amazing. So much fun. And Super Metroid, what can you say? It's just like, it defines all of these games. It is what makes these games what they are. It might not be the most fun to play. It's a little stiff, giving you freedom to explore. It's unparalleled. Like, it's still unparalleled. I think in any of these games, it's the most non-linear of all of them. I think I'm happy with where Metroid Prime 3 and 1 are. I think I'm happy with where Samus Returns and Fusion are. These are all such good games. I am so glad I finally got to play Super Metroid and Fusion and Zero Mission, and to revisit all these other games that I really enjoyed. And you know what? Maybe next year Metroid May might look a little different because there are some other games we haven't played, like Metroid Other M, AM2R, Metroid Prime Hunters, like Metroid Prime Pinball. There are many other games in this series. Thank you so much again for watching. We have so many more Metroid May videos for you to catch up on if you missed any of these games and you want to see my full playthroughs of any of these games, save for Metroid Prime 3 and Samus Returns. Every other game here, there are full playthroughs up on the channel right now, so we'll link you to over there, and I will see you on stream.